Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Etep Wakuian from the Place to Be Reviews, right back here with all of yous. I am joined today by the very lovely, talented entrepreneur, women's physique pro, Jamie Pinder. Thank you so much for joining me, Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on today.
Absolutely. It was it seemed a no-brainer when I'm looking for, to talk to somebody about, the bodybuilding world who's also involved in YouTube. As like I said, I came across your channel on Instagram and I immediately commented, and I'm like, I would like to have you on for an interview. So go ahead and tell my subscribers who may not be familiar with you who you are, what you do, and how long you've been at it.
So I am an IFBB women's physique pro. I actually started competing back in 2007. But when I first started in the NPC, I actually started in the bikini division. And I failed miserably as a bikini competitor. And then it was about 2010, 2012. That's when they came out with the women's physique division. And that's when I made the jump from going from bikini to women's physique. And that was in 2012. I ended up competing for the first time in women's physique at the New England's, actually. And it was funny because the New England's was my first bikini show that I had done back in 2008 or 2009. And when I did it in bikini, I got like last place. I just had no business even being on stage yet. And I was like a giraffe in ice skates on those heels. So it was like a very funny experience for me. And then when I came back in women's physique, it was really awesome because I went back to that same stage, that same big show, because that's one of the biggest bodybuilding shows for amateurs in the Northeast. So when you go and you do well at that show, it's really prestigious for an amateur. So I went back in women's physique and I ended up winning that show, which for me to go from like losing in bikini to winning in women's physique was a great accomplishment for me. And then I went on 2 weeks later to actually go to nationals. I won my pro card. 6 months later, I won my pro debut at the Chicago Pro. And then 12 weeks later, I was at my first Olympia. So my journey in bodybuilding was very whirlwind and it was very outside of the norm. That is the exception. It's not the rule. So like that does not happen for many people, but I'm very blessed because I had a lot of great people around me at that time when I started bodybuilding. But I also had the opportunity in my life where I could dedicate my life to bodybuilding. And so at the time I was laid off from my job. So I had a lot of time to kind of like invest into it. So when people see that transformation, they're like, oh my God, like I can do the same thing. And I'm like, no, like there are a lot of variables that went into me being able to do that. That, and on top of it, like I genetically am made for this sport. I'm very lucky. Both of my parents build muscle very easily. My mom, she would just garden in the summer. And she wouldn't weight train, nothing. She would just garden. And that woman had cap delts and like nice biceps. So it's like I come from, and like my brother's the same way. He's like 5 feet tall, poor guy. But he was a wrestler. But he was like, he would have been the perfect 212 guy. Like if he was into bodybuilding, he would have been great for 212 because he's got those short little muscle bellies and he will work out for 2 weeks and just eat and he will blow up. So, I definitely have the genetics for this sport too. I'm very blessed. And then once I, got to my first Olympia, that first Olympia in 2012, that was the very first time they had women's physique in the Olympia. So that was like, as a pro, one of my big goals was to be part of that landmark historical event in bodybuilding. And I was. I didn't make the top 10 at that event. I was a little bit over dieted. I had been dieting a really long time to qualify for that show. And then it was like 12 weeks leading into that Olympia. So that's like 24 weeks at least of like really hard dieting. So it wasn't my best showing, but just to be a part of that event, I was so grateful and so blessed to be able to just be there with like these amazing women that just the year before, 6 months before, like they were my idols. They were women that I looked up to. And now I'm on the Olympia stage with them. So it was very like, for a new pro, it was definitely an experience that's like, holy crap, like I get to have this experience. This is amazing. Because there are a lot of people who are in the bodybuilding industry that have been amateurs for very long periods of time, and they can be amateurs for 10, 20 years and they never get that pro card. So to go from like amateur to pro so quick and then Olympian was really a blessing for me. And then I went on in 2014, I did the Chicago Pro. Another time I didn't qualify that year. And then it was actually after that show, I ended up getting very ill and I got Lyme disease. So I'm from Connecticut originally, and where I grew up is only 30 minutes from Old Lyme, Connecticut. And they actually named Lyme disease, from that town, Old Lyme, because that's kind of where it all like originated from. So it's not very uncommon from where I'm from for people to have Lyme disease. And they really think that I've probably had it for most of my life, but that the stress of bodybuilding is probably what made it come out of remission. So it was probably a good 6 months where I was going through every single doctor imaginable to figure out what was wrong with me, because I was really inflamed. I couldn't keep food down. My joints were so inflamed I couldn't lift anymore. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't brush my own teeth. I couldn't feed myself. So it had gotten really bad at one point. And then finally they figured out what was wrong. And it wasn't even like modern medicine that really helped me. It was really my own research in doing a lot of kind of like more like natural path type of, work to get me healthy again. But I had lost about 20 pounds of muscle when I had gotten sick. So I actually was at a point where I was like, I'm not even sure I can even compete ever again. So I ended up getting a new coach. I started working with Matt Jansen, and he really helped me get back to like health. He helped me through a lot of the things that I was dealing with Lyme disease. And then in 2016, I decided to make a comeback to women's physique and to the stage. And at that point, having not been able to train, having not been able to like dress myself or brush my own teeth, every single day that I was just able to train, I was able to diet, I was able to bodybuild, it was like I was so filled with gratitude that it was such an amazing prep for me. And I call it my prep and gratitude. And 2016 is probably my favorite year on stage for me because I really felt like I manifested my win at the Chicago Pro. I ended up in 5th place at the Olympia that year. So that was my best showing by far. And then that pre-qualified me for the Olympia the next year. So I ended up that year, I actually, leading into that show, everyone really thought I was going to be like top 3. I had gotten top 5 the year before. I was looking better going into 2017. And unfortunately, my coach, his wife went into labor. He didn't see me in Vegas at all. He had me take a diuretic I did not need the night before the show. And I was like 4% body fat. I was ripped. And when you're that lean, you don't need diuretics, right? Like you don't need anything.
No.
So I ended like the 1 hour that it mattered the most was the 1 hour where I was flat as a pancake. There was no coming back from that. So I ended up not even in the top 10 at that show.
Oh.
So that was, and for me at that point in my life, I had sacrificed everything in my life to be Miss Olympia because I was one of the best in the world. I was top 5. I was pre-qualified. I was going to be in that top 5 again. So I had sacrificed relationships. I had sacrificed work, money, opportunities. I lived in the fucking ghetto in New Haven. Like everything in my life was bodybuilding. And for that to happen, it was a really big life-changing moment for me. And I wasn't in that moment when I didn't do well at the Olympia. I was not my best self. And I really took it very hard. And when I came back, I was determined to qualify for the Olympia and do another show, which was not smart because I had been dieting for a long time. My coach was like, no, you need to take a break after the 2017 Olympia. You're not doing another show. And I was like, oh, fuck you. I'm going to do it myself. And so I did, and I ended up getting badly injured because I trained way too hard right after that show. Because I'm like, I'm gonna go to the Frigno and I'm gonna win it, and I ended up rupturing 2 discs in my back, and I ended up tearing my right labrum, and I also tore a muscle in there too. I still something in there is going on, but I ended up having to get back surgery and hip surgery, and at that same time, I also had a lot of hormone dysfunction. So I went from being one of the best in the world to I could not really do anything. And I was severely depressed. My body was going to shit because I had no sex hormones at all. And at that time, it was probably the worst time in my entire life because I didn't have health insurance at the time. So I couldn't figure out what was wrong with my back. I was just in excruciating pain all the fucking time. And it was really like that coupled with the hormone dysfunction. It's something that I never wish any woman to ever have to go through. And it's something that if I had been taking care of my hormones, if I had been taking care of my health through my bodybuilding career, I wouldn't have ended up in the situation that I did. So, you know, when all of that happened, a big part of me was like, and I think this happens to a lot of athletes that really dedicate their life to their sport, is if they get injured, it's like, why me? Why did this happen? I put so much of my life into this. Yep. And it really opens up your eyes to when you are a professional athlete, when you are doing these things, you still need to cultivate your relationships. You still need to be good to the people around you. You still need to worry about your career outside of the sport. Because when I didn't have the sport anymore, I didn't fucking have anything.
You got tunnel vision, laser focused, and you tend to just, everything else you have blinders on outside of the spectrum that's right in front of you, that end of that goal, that end game you have set in your mind's eye. So that obviously played, probably played a big role, like you said, your relationships. So you said you fell into depression, and I've been there, and I've been to therapy for depression, and I've learned how to manage things like that. So I can imagine, like you said, you're a top tier athlete, in your sport, in the world. So you go from, like you said, you started out with your bikini debut finishing last. Then next thing you know, you're first, you're getting your pro card, you're riding that high, and the rug gets pulled out from under you. And you, at that point, you have to figure out, how do I pick up the pieces and move forward? And, do I have it in me to do this again? When inside you're saying, yes, you do, you do, you have to do this. And that's, I want to talk about your debut now, the women's physique division. Now that was a big point of contention when it first came about in the world of women's bodybuilding, because you had fitness and you had the girls that are flipping all over the stage. They were acrobats. And then it turned to figure. And then you have and that took because girls were getting injured, trying to do back handsprings. And, it's like you have to worry about building your muscle and still be able to basically be an acrobat and, translate that into a coherent posing routine.
I think they wanted a place for, because there was a lot of women, I think, that were in the industry or that were around the bodybuilding world who weren't quite the size of what the women's bodybuilding was becoming. And yet they didn't do gymnastics. So they were still in the gym. They were still working out. They were still very muscular, but they didn't really have a place. So that's when the figure division came about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And women's physique now, would you say that rivals the open bodybuilding, or how would you quantify that?
So back in 2000, I think it was 2012. It was 2012, 2013 when Arnold actually decided to pull women's bodybuilding from the Arnold. That's when all of this kind of started. And women's physique had just started women's physique, and I think it was 2010 or 2011. And women's physique came about because they wanted a place where women who are smaller than bodybuilding but were too big for figure would have a place to compete. And it was supposed to originally be more of that like Corey Everson look that, a lot of what they turned after was like, who's the other one? Dana Lynn Bailey was one of the people that they had in their mind, although I don't like her physique is not aesthetic at all. It's ugly. So I don't understand how they tailored it after her. But
All right. Now, can I get you to speak to what aesthetically you don't like about her physique? Because I've seen her.
Okay,
I'm not
so bodybuilding, if you think about like what bodybuilding is about aesthetics, right? So
Yes.
aesthetics is having a nice tapered waist. It's about having nice round full muscle bellies. It's about
Yes.
having that nice X frame. And
Yeah.
Dana Lynn Bailey lacks two main components of that. Round muscle bellies in her lower body. Her legs are very boxy. She has there's no like real sweep. They're more like boxes, and she didn't really get conditioned enough compared to, I would say, like the other girls that were like winning at that time. And then she's very boxy. Like she doesn't have that nice X frame. She has more of like a Y frame. So for me, like aesthetics and bodybuilding, you're looking for an X frame, you're looking for a tiny waist, you're looking for nice round muscle bellies. And to be Miss Olympia, to me, you need to mark off all the boxes with big, like you have to have gold stars for all of them. You should have all of that in spades, where she didn't have two of those components at all. So it's like, how are you Miss Olympia? I don't know. To me, there were just other women on that stage who were far more deserving based on the way that they look.
Do you think that her social media and that presence and also
that's why I said based on the way that she looks.
I've seen her in like I think she was in a music video. They've so she's been deemed as marketable, and that's one thing I really want to talk to you about, because I grew up in I was born in 1980. I have no qualms about saying my age. I'm 42. I grew up in the 80s with Rachel McLeish, but then you get to the end of the 80s and you have Carla Nelson, Nicole Bass, into the 90s, Kim Krzyzewski, Denise Rutkowski, which is we were actually talking about her the other night, which is a fucking tragic, sad story for a woman who was absolutely, in my eyes, in the early 90s, one of the most beautiful female bodybuilders I had ever seen. She was beautiful, and then to see how far she fell, it's sad. It really is. But so looking back at those physiques, like, and they were deep. Well, it's not marketable. It's a sideshow thing. Like Carla Nelson was, 205 pounds, but her physique was just amazing. Same can be said about Nicole Bass. And now we've come into this age where you're seeing muscular females being deemed as marketable, but still to a certain extent, it's shunned. Like when I talked about having you on, I get usual the guys in the chat, and I don't, these are my subscribers. They're my people. I'm not going to insult their taste, but I say, look, if I had one guy who was like, well, women are supposed to be soft, and I'm like, that's your opinion. I grew up appreciating the athletic, fit, developed female form. I respect that. Having been somebody who has, worked out off and on, grew up in the weight room with my dad. As I talked off air, my dad's been a bodybuilder. He's a Marine, he's a cop my whole life. So I respect that. I appreciate that. And I think it's something to be celebrated, because anybody can go out and you can get your Iggy Azalea butt implants and collagen or whatever, but a physique is earned in the gym and in the kitchen, which is people don't appreciate that. And another thing is, you ladies have to put so much extra time and effort into your appearance to make yourselves marketable, and the prize money doesn't reflect that. That unfairly as it is, because that's a complaint from the women's side of the physique sport, has been prize money differences, supplement sponsorships, things of the like. And I critique movies, and I see these action movies where you have a girl who is the size of my wife, 5 foot tall, throwing somebody like me who's 6'3", 240, throwing me around. And I'm like, look, I know there's a select few women out there that can absolutely do that. Absolutely. One of them is Vivi Lane. I'm terrified of her. But at the same time, it's like that is the exception, not the norm. I was like, if you're going to have these action stars and you want that, which I have no problem with that. Iron Eagle 3 with Rachel McLeish, that is a guilty pleasure film. The Nemesis movies with Sue Price from the 90s, directed by Albert Pune. a beautiful homage to the muscular female physique.
Right.
I'm one who says cast women that look like you. You know, there's
Right.
women out there that are bodybuilders, that are, you know, physique, that are fitness, that can act. And if they can't act, they have acumen for stunts and physical things. So take even you provide them with some acting lessons, you have a amazing female heroine. And that's, as somebody who's involved in the film and fitness, I would love to see more of that. It just makes sense.
Right, and it's funny. I listened to like a couple people on YouTube on like commentary on like like just current event stuff, and there was one girl who was talking about the most current the SheHulk, and she's like, what? Why do we have this woman doing SheHulk? She's like, get a female bodybuilder, paint her green. She's like, it's not that hard. She's like, you don't have to worry about all this CGI shit. If you just get someone, she's like, it's not that hard. And it's true. So here's the thing: if you're more familiar with the film industry, what's your opinion on why there's such pushback on actually doing that? Why isn't that being done?
For my opinion, I look at it because they are. See, this is the thing. A lot of these modern movies that push this, and I say this, it's intersectional feminism. It's contemporary intersectional feminism. It's not traditional feminism, because traditional feminism is that's what got women their rights. Absolutely. No issue there. It's intersectional feminism, thinly veiled, which is actually misandry. And that's I see that in a lot of the studios now, because you have these women who they get in these positions of power because, your inclusion and diversity initiatives in entertainment in Hollywood, which is putting, not in all cases, but most of them we're seeing highlighted, because they're the ones that end up being the problems that lose money. And then they blame people like me for being toxic male fans. And I'm afraid of strong women. I'm like, first of all, I'm married to a fucking strong woman who literally died giving birth to our son while I held her hand. And she's still here. I'm not afraid that, like I said, if I was afraid of strong women, I wouldn't have emailed Jamie Pinder and said, hey, Jamie, would you come on? Would you be so kind to come on for an interview? I wouldn't have been a fan of the women's, physique, fitness, bodybuilding industry for pretty much 30 out of the 42 years I've been on this planet. I think the studios are afraid of that because they want strong women. Look at Gina Carano, for example. They want strong women until they can't control what they say. That's what happened. And being a person of, like I said, my ethnic background, being part Russian Jew, I have no problem with what she said regarding her correlation to, the Holocaust in modern society and persecution of people's rights of free speech, which I found the correlation to be accurate. And then they fire her, and it's like, you wanted a strong woman, you get a strong woman who voices her opinion, and then you put your hand over her mouth and tell her she can't say that. And that's what I think a lot of the fear is, because I look at you, you're outspoken, you're strong, you're independent, you have your ducks in a row, you're career minded, you know where you want to go with your brand, and you're obviously driven to succeed at that goal. So that scares these men and who are in charge of making these decisions, who say they want these strong women, but they're truly insecure inside. So much so that they'll like, well, okay, we'll take an actress like, and I'm using her as an example because she's polarizing, as Brie Larson. A wonderful example is because wherever she goes, she can't help but put her foot in her mouth. And and that's the thing, is they're trying to pass her off as this powerhouse. And it's like, I don't even superpowered her. It's like, I don't buy it. Give me somebody who fills out a costume. Like you said, she had to have an ass double. Girl, do lunges and eat some red beans and rice. Do some lunges, girl. You know what I
think is going to be interesting, though, because what I start to see is this like weird intersection between all this trans stuff and the trans rights and all of that. And like, okay, so we have all of that going on where there's like, there's not really, there isn't a woman anymore. We don't even know what the fuck that is anymore, right? Like, so there's no, we've got this weird kind of, you know, I guess gender is on this spectrum. There is no gender, blah. So it's like, if we have all these concepts where like the very far left is like, oh my God, like all this trans stuff, and there's no sex differences, and there's no differences between men and women and blah, then why aren't we having, like, to me, that's confusing, that we have this society where we're really blasting all this far left, like crazy trans crap. And at the same time, we aren't able to have female leads in like superhero roles that have muscle. Like the two, it like doesn't correlate. It's like whatever suits the left to make to like just appease the certain people. It's like, oh, okay, that's good. But when the reality of seeing a woman with muscle is in front of these people, it's like, oh, like that's not, like, we still don't want to see that, right? To me, it's a very interesting time in culture in America right now, to kind of see all this evolve. And when I look into the bodybuilding world, it's interesting how I see some of these things start to intersect, where you know, we look at the divisions, like even the rules for the different divisions. So for all the female divisions, from women's physique, figure, fitness, wellness, and bikini. So all of the women's divisions, with the exception of female bodybuilding, femininity is part of the judging. Your femininity and your presentation as being feminine is part of your score. In female bodybuilding, it is not included. You do not have, that is not a part of the scoring at all. So if we are not taking consideration that those women actually need to be women, and we have women who are abusing high levels of androgens and who are essentially, if we look at these women's blood work, it would be that of a man. They have transitioned themselves. Like chemically, they have transitioned themselves. So if we have women who are doing that to themselves and they're competing in bodybuilding, and there's no judging criteria for femininity at all, why do we have women's and men's bodybuilding? Why don't we just have one? If we're in this society where gender is this continuum, and there's no men and women, and we have these women who are essentially doing the same drugs and doing the same things to their bodies as men, why are we having two separate categories for them if femininity is not something that's going to be that's not going to be a part of the score? Then why do we care if we're in a society that? So it's very interesting to me. I go down these rabbit holes of like thinking about this stuff, just because. I went to college for anthropology and human rights, and I did it. Actually, like my concentration was in like women's studies, but more so like women in Latin America and like gender studies and like a lot of like sex trade stuff and stuff like that. But I got to like, you know, it's just interesting to really delve into like what's going on culturally. What are our ideas of what men and women should and should not be? What the differences are now? Do we really believe? There's part of society right now and young kids who believe that there genuinely is no difference between men and women hormonally or biologically. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. Like when you put these hormones and these drugs into your body, you know, I actually am very concerned about like the trans community and what's happening to their healthcare, because, you know, I try and do a lot of studies about what is going to happen, or not. I try to do a lot of research and look at studies about what happens to women long term when they do anabolics or when they are like messing with their hormones, because that's a lot of what I talk about on my channel. And that's a lot of what I try and help women with. Because like I said in my own story, that time when my hormones were messed up, I never want any woman to feel that way. That was so terrible. I really want to help any women avoid that. So I try and do my research to figure out what is the long-term consequences of women using these things. Where can we find some research on this? And so I've done a lot of research and read a lot of the studies on these women that are trans men who have had long-term testosterone usage and what's happening to their health. And it's interesting to see like the correlation that I see with the clients that I work with who are older female bodybuilders who have been using and abusing anabolics for long periods of time, and the health complications they come across. Because eventually these things, I think that it's a nice concept for us to think, yes, everyone should be able to do whatever they want with their bodies. If you want to blast tons of drugs and anabolics, and you want to be a man, you want to be a woman, you want to be whatever the fuck you want, yes, I think in theory that's a beautiful idea, and I think that's wonderful, right? That we should be able to do whatever we want. But I think we also need to take into consideration fucking biology. Like, what the fuck, people? Because yes, we can transition people and give them all these hormones, and we can even do this through like bodybuilding. We can fuck with our hormones and do all these things to ourselves. But what's happening? Like, what are we really doing to our longevity? What are we doing? Like, are we taking away years of our lives and years of these very young trans? Like, I'm worried about these trans kids that are like 16, 18, 12, 14, like, how long are these people going to live? What kind of cancers are they going to have? What kind of other health complications? Because I see women who have been abusing anabolics for many decades, and I see the complications with it. And I see, and that's a big part of why I'm not sure. Like, I put out a video of like, should we have brought female bodybuilding back? And it was very controversial, and a lot of female bodybuilding. Like, I was the most hated woman in female bodybuilding for a while, because I said, is this something we really want to bring back? Because do we want young women looking up to other women who have been abusing anabolics for long periods of time? What kind of look are we now that women's bodybuilding came back? Because Arnold got rid of it. We got rid of it in 2013, 14 in the IFBB, and then they brought it back. And
was it the Rising Phoenix? Was that where?
Yeah. So he had someone who bought the Olympia. He decided he's a big fan of female bodybuilding. He decided to bring it back. So it's like, okay, is this going to be another evolution of female bodybuilding where it's going to be back to the days of Iris Kyle? Is that something that we want to? Is that something we really want to promote? Because there's a difference between women who are using anabolics responsibly and not slowly killing themselves, and women who can dabble and who are like, here's the thing, everyone thinks that the pros and the people that are on the top for long periods of time, oh, they must be doing tons of drugs, and if I did all the drugs they did, then I would be able to be just like them. You don't understand, the people at the top who are there for a long time, if they were using oodles of drugs, they wouldn't be there for a long time. It doesn't work that way. The people who are at the top don't need a lot of drugs because they genetically are meant for this fucking sport. And so you have these people who have this misconception that, oh, all these pros are doing all of these drugs. And, you know, it becomes this very dangerous road where, especially now where the availability of drugs, you can go onto Google and type in any drug you want and you can have it delivered to your house within a freaking week. It's not like it was, back in the 80s and the 90s, early 2000s, it was hard to get drugs. It was not easy. It is so different when you have an 18, 17, 16-year-old girl looking at female bodybuilders going, oh, I want to do that. And they see a journey like mine, maybe, where well, Jamie Pinder can get a pro card in a year and turn pro and go to the Olympia. She just must have taken lots of drugs. Let me go on Google. I'm 16 years old. I got mommy's credit card, however they fucking pay for shit. And you've got these very young girls who are taking SARMs. They're taking all these anabolics. And it's like, all right, what kind of look are we going to promote in women's bodybuilding? Are we going to promote a look that is going to eventually have all of these other very young women go down a very dangerous road much sooner than the people that we're seeing on stage right now? And it's like, a lot of the female bodybuilders got mad at me for saying all of this because they're like, oh, we should be able to do whatever we want and we shouldn't have to fit into society standards. And it's like, there's a difference between the Iris Kyle days and back like when Corey Everson was on stage. And like, there's a big fucking difference between that. And there's a big difference between what it takes to get there and how long you're going to live and what kind of health complications you're going to have. Because trust me, I don't like, you look at Iris Kyle now, and I'm pretty sure that I've heard that she has had lots of health complications. So it's like, don't come and tell me that all those people, like, yeah, there are few that didn't have any complications but there's a difference between the exception and the fucking rule. You guys, they all look at the exceptions. They all look at the exception. Oh, well, if so-and-so can have kids and it's like, yeah, but what about the other thousands of women out there who have fucked themselves up that you don't hear about because they fucking disappeared because they're not on social media. So to me, it's like, you know, people, you want to go out and be an alcoholic, go for it. That is your prerogative. Do whatever you want with your life. Do I want to watch a sport where people drink themselves to death? Fuck no. Same thing with female bodybuilding. Like, can women go abuse and like completely like kill themselves with drugs? Sure. Go do whatever the hell you want. You can go turn yourself into like, transition yourself, do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. I truly believe people should do that. But do I want to watch women slowly kill themselves on stage and do that? No, I don't. And I think it's like the lens that I see women's bodybuilding through is a very different lens than a lot of people. Because when I look at the lens of female bodybuilding, when I see highly androgenized women who are highly virilized, to me, I see, what is her liver? What about her cholesterol, her heart? What about, she's probably insulin resistant. What is going, like, I think about all these complications. I think about all the problems that I know come along with androgen abuse. And it's like, there are going to be very few women who their bodies, yes, are going to be able to handle higher levels of androgen. Like, they're going to be the genetic outliers. But they are genetic outliers. They are not the norm. They are not the average. And it's like all these women think, oh, well, this one athlete who made it to the top, who's genetically elite, can do lots of drugs or can look this certain way. And it's like, I think that social media has really created this whole like very fucked up idea of this sport and the drugs and everything else and these expectations for, you know, how athletes should look all the time or how they should look in general. And then you also have now you've got athletes who are staying leaner, staying in shape, staying on drugs year round because they have to for the likes, for the social media, or they feel like they have to.
It's the
for
clout.
the likes, for the social media. And it's like, all right, how many years of your life are you taking away for that like, for that comment, for that little bit of boost of whatever you're getting out of that? And it's, it's a very interesting time in bodybuilding for me. I actually, you know, I did a lot on my channel to just talk about everything that I went through with my hormones, the way that, you know, that I kind of like help myself through it. A lot of the challenges I faced, not only in like physically that happened to me, but also, you know, emotionally that happened in my life, that happened with my relationships. I'm very open about my side effects. I'm very open about my challenges and the mistakes that I made so that other women wouldn't have to. So I do hope that my channel like helps people in that way. But after I put up that, like the female bodybuilding video, I did end up taking like a step back from my channel. It's been like a little while since I posted on there because for me, that channel, the purpose of that channel was to really help people and to make women like really, you know, to just ultimately, like, it was just to help people. Like, I just want women to not ever have to go through what I had to go through. I want women to have all the knowledge. Like, I don't care what people do, whether they do drugs or don't do drugs. Like I said, people should do whatever makes them happy. Like, I'm doing whatever makes me happy in my life, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. So it's like, I truly believe that. And like when I put out the video about the female bodybuilding, I just got so much hate, and like so many people were like, "Oh my God, like you're such a terrible person, and you're so mean, and you're so and I'm just like, y'all don't even know who I am. Like you didn't even listen to the video, none of it." So I took a step back for a little bit because to me, I'm at a point in my life where I am going to keep on putting my energy into things that make me feel good. And at the time, like, it just wasn't making me feel good for a little while, but I'm going to be coming back. I've actually got a couple podcasts I'm going to be putting on there. I'm going to put, hopefully I'll put this one on there too. Now I've been I kind of like made a little bit of switch in my focus in my life for a little bit. Started up my OnlyFans page finally, which was actually, it was interesting because it was actually kind of like full circle with the whole female bodybuilding video that I put up.
Yeah.
You know, it really made me do a little bit of more self-reflection too. I'm like, okay, you know, because I've always been an athlete that I never did any kind of sex work. I never did any kind of flex for pay. I was very adamant about not doing any kind of that while I was an athlete, because I felt like if you are going to be an athlete, and if athletes want to be respected as athletes, as professional athletes, we can't be whores at the same time. Because here's the thing. I don't care. To me, if a female athlete also does sex work, it doesn't change the way I think about her. That's not my, so like, to me personally, it doesn't matter, right? But when the rest of the world, they don't think that way. Okay, so just because I think a certain way does not mean that the rest of the world is going to happily think that way. And I'm very perceptive, obviously, about what culture thinks about things. I'm very I'm aware of those things. So as a professional athlete, I'm aware that when women do sex work as professional athletes, they are less respected by the general public. And that's just the way it is. Whether or not women like that or not, that's the way it is. And that's just too fucking bad. If you don't like it, too bad. That's the way that society thinks of it. So deal with it. A lot of people got mad at me for saying that. And I'm like, it's not what I think. This is just me telling you how the fuck it is. Don't be mad at me for telling you how it is.
And that societal perception, absolutely. Perception is reality. And that's where we're at with the media and social media and the like. And just to clarify now, when you, because you're saying sex work now, I understand the connotations with that. Now, when you say that, are you implying to the mixed wrestling sessions as well in general, even if there's because there's girls that do legitimate mixed wrestling or just all encompassing?
Okay. So when I say sex work, I'm saying any kind of content that's being put out that is for the purpose of arousing someone sexually. Okay. So on my Instagram, before I started my OnlyFans, if I put a posing video up, it was purely because I'm an athlete and I am showing off the physique of an athlete. Yes. My purpose of doing that posing video on my Instagram when I was an athlete was not to sexually arouse anyone. When I put up that video, were there men who would get sexually aroused? Yes. But was the purpose and intent of that content? No. It was for me to be an athlete and for me to show off my hard work and my accolades. That's what it was. Where now I'm creating content. It may be still me in a bikini, not naked, not having sex with anyone, not touching myself, nothing, just posing the same way. But now my intent is I want you to think I'm sexy. I want you to get a hard on. I want you to. So it's there's a difference between the two, right? There's right? The intent of what the content is meant. Okay. Yeah. So it's before, when I was an athlete, my content was about me being an athlete because that's who I was. That's what I was doing. That's how I wanted to be respected. And I feel one of the reasons women don't get paid as much in this sport is because I don't think the general public, because they see them associating them with themselves with sex work, I think that it devalues them. Do I devalue them? No, but I think society devalues them, which makes it so that and I think that's one of the reasons women don't get paid as much in this sport. Okay. And unfortunately, it's this vicious cycle where women don't get paid as much in this sport. So what do? They resort to sex work. So now they're resorting to sex work because they don't get paid in this sport. And so but now they're not respected because they're doing sex work. So they're never going to get paid more. And so you go around and round and round and round in this vicious cycle.
And the wheel just keeps going.
Right. I do feel more recently, having OnlyFans is it's much more common. I don't think it's as taboo as it used to be. And I think that a lot of people, because it's so diverse in what you can put on there. I mean, there are people who have cooking channels on there now. Yeah. So it's a lot of the content doesn't even need to be in a sexual nature on OnlyFans anymore. So I feel the taboo is starting to come down, especially in the industry itself. But it's like, is that still going to hold women back if women are trying to be elite athletes? I don't know. Ask yourself, do you see the top tennis players in the world having OnlyFans and having to sell sex because they don't make enough money? No. Do you see what other professional athletes do you see that, like, in hordes, the way that bodybuilding does, doing sex work? And it's like, there's a reason for that, and I don't think the biggest reason for that is that you have this special community of like fetish schmoes. Like, yes, that exists and that's there, but I think there's more of a correlation between the lack of money and sponsorship that women like don't get in this sport, and with like the correlation of the amount of women who end up resorting to sex work. And I think one of my biggest problems in the past with women doing sex work or OnlyFans or Flux for Pay, any of that kind of stuff, you know, the thing that I guess like that kind of was always like off-putting to me was I don't want women to feel like they have to do it. You know, I feel like there were a lot of women that I encountered in the sport of bodybuilding through my career that it was like they had to do it because like they didn't have any other choice, because they were trying to be really elite at their sport. But in order to be elite at this sport, you have to dedicate a lot of time and a lot of money. And if you're in a sport that dedicates so much time and so much money and you're not being rewarded for it and you're not being compensated through sponsorships or prize money, how else are you going to make that money? Because you can't work more, because if you work more, you can't train. So it's not a matter of like, okay, I got to put more hours into work to pay for my sport, because then that takes away from the amount of time you have in your sport. So what are these? It's like, I don't like when women feel like it's their last resort and they have to do it. For me right now, I love doing my OnlyFans because it's not something I have to do. I like financially, my coaching business does fucking phenomenal. I don't need to do OnlyFans. I started doing OnlyFans because I wanted to. I actually had a really the female bodybuilding video came out, and that really made me like ask myself, why am I not doing this right now? Like, I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm retired. I retired 5 years ago. I have no intent on ever being on stage again. And I'm like, I look awesome. I have I go to EDM shows, right? And like
I'll second that. I was going to say, and to speak to your Instagram really quick, when you were competing, because I followed you on Instagram for a while, you never posted anything like, you posted competition stuff. And now you're posting your EDM festival stuff with your body paint. And because you're like, you can do that now because you don't have to, but your track record as a coach speaks for itself. You're not a competing athlete, and you're making money because the people that are the competitors that are gonna come to you for coaching are gonna come to you for coaching. They're not gonna care if you're topless with body paint on at an EDM festival. That doesn't matter in terms of coaching.
Right. So I actually, I spent over a decade of my life being a very dedicated athlete. All I did was bodybuilding. All the time. I never had any fun. I never went out. I really limited the amount of experiences that I had in my life. Bodybuilding was fun, and I had many wonderful experiences I'm very grateful for in bodybuilding, but I didn't have a fucking life for a long time. Yeah. So I finally this year started going to these EDM shows. I ended up going to a big one called The Weekender out in the Gorge in Washington State. So the Gorge is this beautiful amphitheater in Washington State, surrounded by, it's like a national park. So it's like you are surrounded by beauty. And I had this very, I guess, spiritual experience while I was out there. And it really opened up, back before I started bodybuilding, I was very creative. I used to paint, I used to draw, I used to design and sew and make all my own clothes. I made all my prom dresses, not all of them. I made a couple of my prom dresses. So it was I had this very creative side before bodybuilding that I kind of because bodybuilding took up so much of my time, I kind of just let go of. And then when I went to this EDM thing out in Washington, I just it just all came back to me, and I had all of these really great ideas for just really artistic content of like doing like body paint stuff and doing like different photography. And now I'm going to get into like more of like aerial yoga stuff and incorporate that with all of my, like all of my photography and videos. And because when I'm in really good shape and I dance and I move and I dress myself up in crazy costumes, I look fucking awesome. And to me, like when I go to those shows, it's not about like, to me, it's about making living art. And like right now, like what I'm doing with my OnlyFans, like, yeah, some of it's just like titties and like sexy stuff and stuff like that and flexing. But a lot of it is like a way for me to showcase a lot of this art that I'm doing. So I also do like music videos that are very like edited with really cool effects and like with the body paint. And so, but it like incorporates the posing and the muscle. And so it's really like a combination of kind of like all of these things that I've accumulated in my life, right? Where, you know, I've got the experience from the bodybuilding. I have my, like, I'm also like in bodybuilding, I was a makeup artist for years. So I did the stage makeup for years. And then I was an artist, you know, back when I was like, before I started bodybuilding. So it's like, everything that like I have the knowledge to make myself look awesome for all these shoots, right? I've spent over a decade building this crazy physique that looks awesome. And I have all of this background now in, you know, doing makeup and doing the body paint stuff and all that. And it's like, now I can bring all of that together, learn some new skills and create some like really awesome, amazing living art. And like, you know, also do the photography and the video with it. And I'm having a really amazing time. And it's something that it's like, I feel like I'm doing everything that I want to create the life that I want right now. And I am not giving two fucks about what anyone thinks about it. I don't care. Here's the thing. The content that I make on my OnlyFans, I don't give a fuck if anyone likes it. If you like it, you will come to me. And if you don't like it, you won't be here anymore. And the thing is, like, when you do in your life what truly makes you happy, what you truly feel passionate about, like, when you do that, and you trust that everything's going to work out, it just fucking does. I'm telling you, ever since I have just been doing whatever makes me happy and how I want to create my life, dude, all these things have just been coming into my life and happening for me. So it's like, I have all these crazy ideas for photo shoots with like really like costumey stuff and awesome stuff. Yeah. And there's a little shop in Charlotte here that has all these crazy, like awesome outfits. So I go down to the shop yesterday. I become friends with the owner. I walk out with 2 bags of like crazy outfits for nothing because he's like, I showed him a bunch of my work and like, you know, we just like got along really well. And like, he's very chill. He's very much into like meditation and Joe Dispenza and like, you know, all that like personal development stuff that I'm very into. And so it was just like the universe just kind of aligned for me to create this like network with him. So now he's giving me outfits that I can do crazy photo shoots in. And then he's going to use some of that content to promote his store. And so it's like, now we've got this great network and it's like, when you just keep on doing the things in your life that make you happy, that are creating the life that you really want, everything is going to come to you. But you have to stop giving a fuck about what anyone thinks or what you think can go wrong. Or when you worry about every little thing about what everyone else thinks and you can never control any of that shit. Like you got to focus on the things you have control over because you only have so much time in your life. Right? You only have so many hours in a day. You only have so much time in your life. When you focus on the things that you have no control over, what does it do for those things? Do any of those things change?
No.
Never. What you have done by focusing on what other people think about you, by focusing on what could happen, by focusing on anything that's outside of your control, you have wasted your most precious fucking asset in your life, and that is your time. And it's like when you can focus all of your time on the things that are in your control, then you can actually you can spend all of that time creating so much better things in your life for you. And like, you're going to just attract all the right people, the people who do believe in you, the people who do like look at my stuff and go, that's cool as shit. They're going to come and they're going to subscribe and they're going to want to look at my stuff. The people who just want like women rubbing their clits and shit like that, they're not going to stay on my page for long because they're not going to get that. But that's okay because the people who do want to see my stuff, they will come. Like, you just have to have that faith that, like,
wait,
the right.
Was that a
like,
double? Was that a double entendre? Did you just do a double entendre there?
Right. Yes.
I think you did. Sorry, I had to. That's just, you know, the way my brain's wired. I'm a huge Office fan, so I'm a that's what she said kind of guy. You know,
yes.
I'm perpetually like 16 years old in my brain, but it keeps me young.
Yeah.
That is, and we will link your OnlyFans in the description to the interview, absolutely, and as well as your channel, your Instagram, and any other links you'd like us to put in there, absolutely.
Awesome.
So. That is a freaking incredible, like, the way you, I guess, like you said, you've had that awakening to where you're able to express yourself, your art, your talents through that, and that does kind of go against the grain of the misconception about OnlyFans, and it's funny too because the way it originally started was kind of like you said, it was like photos and people sharing, like not necessarily, you know, sex content. But other things, and it kind of morphed and evolved into that. But you're going against the grain of that. What you're doing is sexy, but it's art, and like you said, you're getting to showcase other facets of your personality aside from that accentuate your physique as well, and like you said, show off your talents, which is freaking that is, and that's great. And I like what you said about your channel, you know, your women's bodybuilding video, about it causing heat because YouTube is so, like, I do my best to avoid like stupid drama and shit like that. Like there's occasions on Twitter where I'll get on there and I'll see something and it's like, oh, I get to smack the shit out of an insane leftist with some memes. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be savage. You know, but it's like, as far as YouTube goes, like I've been, the first time I ever did stand-up comedy, I was 10 years old. And I was painfully shy and I stuttered. You know, that was how I was as a kid. And I was so self-conscious, and it's like, I still am to a certain extent, but that's neither here nor there. But, you know, wrestling and everything helped me come out of that. You know, I worked in FM at radio for years, and doing this, it's like, you find those outlets.
That's a big takeaway, though. It's like, I think when people see people like you and I, who, like, we put ourselves out there, right? Like, we're like on our YouTube channels, like, people think, oh, Jamie, you're just a confident person. Like, people probably, like, you know, like, see your channel and just think that you're just a confident person, that you were just born this way. And I think what people need to understand is, like, the people that you see that are confident, the people that you see that are, like, on top of their shit, that are really, like, the high achievers, and they're like, it didn't just happen that way. It's because they cultivated those things within themselves. I used to have no fucking self-confidence. I was like, hated myself. I had no self-esteem. You have to decide who you want to be. If you want to be a confident person, you have to decide to be a confident person. Here, listen, like, you did what you wanted to do to become a confident person. You stuttered, you were shy, but guess what? You still went up and you did stand-up comedy. Like, that's the thing is, like, I think people, you know, they think that, oh, if I don't innately have these skills, then I shouldn't even try. And it's like, these people have these skills. They don't innately have these skills. It's about, you have to keep on over and over and over again practicing being a confident person, right? And it's just like anything else where, all right, when you first start doing squats, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. It feels awkward. It feels weird. You're like, oh, is this right? I don't know. Like, can someone watch me? And you have no idea, right? And it feels really weird. And you can't lift any. But then as you practice more, you're 2 years down the road and squatting, and then you get under a bar, and it's like, you know, up and down, whatever, you're great. Same thing with, like, willpower, confidence, who you want to be as a person. It's about every day practicing being, you know, I say to a lot of my clients, is like, when you have questions about what to do in your life, what path to go on, what decisions to make, what kind of self-talk to have every day, think about the woman you want to be. Think about the man you want to be. What are they going to say to themselves? What are they going to wake up feeling like every day? What are they going to do every day? And in your mind, go rehearse being the woman that you want to be. When you rehearse in your mind being that person, you're creating a blueprint for who you need to be. It's so much. If you go into trying to build an IKEA freaking thing and you have no instructions and you have no blueprint, you're gonna look at all those pieces and go, I don't know what the fuck to do, and you're gonna build some half-ass fucking thing that probably falls apart, right? And then you're gonna have to build it again, right? And it's gonna seem like failure. It's gonna seem like failure all the time. It's gonna seem like I'm never gonna be able to build this thing, right? But when you have the blueprint in front of you and you have all the pieces and you go, oh, I'm just going to follow this blueprint. And then you built this beautiful thing that you wanted to build. It's sturdy. It's going to stand the test of time. But if you have no blueprint, wow, how do you expect that you're going to know what to do and who to be? So, I think that's a big thing is like, just because you are someone today, just because you've never been a confident person in the past, doesn't mean that I can't wake up today and decide I'm going to be a fucking confident person, because it is that easy. You can decide one day. I was an alcoholic. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was in construction. Like, I did not like my life. I woke up one day and I said, this is not the life I want. I want to create something different. And I just fucking started doing it. And I think people, they create all these excuses for who they've been in the past. And, oh, well, I can't because I'm not confident. Well, you're never going to be confident if you keep on fucking thinking that way, right?
They get stuck in that victim mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a victim mentality. And it's pervasive. And it holds you down. All it does is shackle you to the floor, basically. And it keeps you from achieving, because you have those self-actualizations. And then, thoughts become things, as somebody greater than me once said. And it's a beautiful thing.
But then you've got this whole woke society right now where everyone wants a label, and it's like the more that you accept labels of whether it's mental illness labels or whether it's like labels of like who you are as a, like any kind of label that you claim for yourself, you are limiting yourself. You innately in that moment are limiting yourself to that. I remember I had suffered from depression like most of my life. It's been I still battle with it today. But like I was very suicidal. I used to cut myself when I was younger. It was a big struggle for me. But when I was younger, I was going to a lot of like mental health professionals that were like, oh, you have, you're bipolar, you're this, and they were always trying to categorize and put a label. And I'm like, you know what? Like when I stopped worrying about what kind of like mental illness I had, and I focused on what are the things in my life, what are the things that I tell myself, the people I'm around, the input that I put into my brain that makes me feel good. If you focus on that and you stop focusing about, oh, what illness do I have? Do I have this? Do I have that? Stop worrying about that. Focus on what makes me feel good. What are the thoughts that I think that make me feel with the people I'm around? Because I know when I was suffering my depression, if I listened to shitty music, if I was around shitty people, if instead of going out and being around people, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit in my house and listen to fucking Smashing Pumpkins and, like, right? Like, it's just like sit in my little like cave, like close all my windows. Yeah, you're going to be depressed as fuck, and it's like,
I wonder why I'm depressed. I've been listening to Depeche Mode and drinking box wine all day. Son of a bitch. Yeah, it's not conducive to good mental health. But I feel like this woke society is like, it's like they're like embracing it. And it's just like, why do you people, you don't, trust me, you don't want a mental illness. Why do people want a mental illness? Like, it's a struggle. It's hard. It's like, nobody, I wouldn't wish depression or mental illness on anyone. No. It's so destructive in life, and it's such a hard thing to get out of. Like, if my heart goes out to people that like suffer, it's like, but why do these people want this? Like, to me, it's just like crazy. And because even like with the trans stuff and the gay and everything else, it's like being different like that is hard. Like that life is hard. Like being like having that like mental of like thinking that you're not in the right body, or just like being like any of that, like I don't know why people want that. It's like that's not normal, and that's not something that's going to like help make your life better. No. Yes, you'll probably grow as a person. Like you'll probably have to be a much more resilient, stronger person for it. Absolutely. But there are going to be some people who like
you know, with their mental illness, whatever, it doesn't, like, they aren't strong enough to do that. So it's, I don't know. It's such a weird time in society right now, right?
It absolutely is. And like I said, that's the kind of way society is. Makes me glad. A, I live in a smaller town, and B, I send my kid to a good private school.
Yeah.
Where I
am
actually,
sorry.
like I said, I teach at too. So, you know,
Yeah.
part sub. So it's like I get to see, you know, the inner workings, and I don't have teachers that are trying to indoctrinate, you know, my
Right.
son into all this weirdness. But I know you're pressed for time, but I do want to extend an invitation to you. I know you're going to be traveling to have you come back and do another interview, because I've during the course of this discussion, I've heard you mention, you know, the woke culture and things like that, and I want to bring you back, because we're very anti that, and we get blamed for being racist, bigots, homophobes, yada yada yada, all that stuff all the time. I wear that like a badge of honor every time some idiot calls me a racist. It's funny, because it's like, I criticized writing. That does not make me racist. So, and that's a you know, that's a symptom of the woke culture. But Jamie, thank you so much. Go ahead, and I'm going to put you on solo. Tell them where they can find you, YouTube, and all your other links, and we'll post those in the description as well. And let me put you on solo, because nobody wants to see me.
Sure. So you guys can find me on my YouTube. It is Cats, Clits, and Clen. So yes, Cats, Clits, and Clen on YouTube. And it's Jamie Pinder 14 on Instagram. So you guys can find me there. Definitely follow me. Comment, send me some support. And then, of course, my OnlyFans. If you guys go to my Instagram, there's a link in my link tree. But I'm sure if you just type in Jamie Pinder, it should come up right in the search bar on OnlyFans. But I appreciate you guys so much for having me on. Thank you so much. This was a really great conversation. And I would love to come back. I love to talk about the woke stuff too. So, and I find that just like so many different intersections right now going on in society with different other things when it comes to, you know, just gender and sexuality and all that stuff. So I would definitely love to come back. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And my last request is, can we get a front double by, because you have impressive arms. I gotta get one out of you before we go. There it is right there, ladies and gentlemen. Jamie Pinder, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Folks, go check out her channel, subscribe. She's just over 2,000 subscribers now. Let's throw some more love her way, and follow her. Like I said, I followed you on Instagram for a long time, and it's been a pleasure getting to meet you. And yeah, we will definitely have you back on. Folks, you guys know where you can find me and the rest of the crew here from the Place to Be Reviews. So until next time, until tonight, well, let's see, you'll be watching this in the future. So last night, you'll watch the replay of the stream after you watch this interview, because this was a blast. I'm Itepo Queen of the Place to Be Reviews. We've been here with all of yous. If we don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow, and we'll catch you on the next one.
It's better to burn out than to fade away. I could do this.